What's going on, guys? Today, this is D. Durrell with D. Durrell Life Solutions. Today, I'm going to talk about another topic as it relates to relationships, but we're going to revisit things that I've talked about um, as it relates to this pretty much very fragile relationship with black women and their sons, black mothers and black sons. I have noticed, particularly in the last 30 days, the last 2 weeks, and then kind of ongoing and outgoing, where I'm seeing tons of people revisiting a lot of my content where I put black women and their sons and the issues and the dynamics of that. I've spoken several times about the inappropriate relationships. I talked several times about how black men and even as young men, older men, as kids, teenagers, how they have difficulties with their relationship and how the difficulties in that relationships influence how they interact with young women and how the dynamic of their relationship with their mother is hypercritical, not just critical, but hypercritical in the mate that they choose and how they choose their mate long term, because they utilize their mother, good or bad, positive or negative, as a model of how they interact with other women. Also, they look at the fact that particularly those who have very close, and to me sometimes too close of a relationship, where that mother is extremely influential in your decisions, and as a man you should be making your own independent decisions as you make decisions to date whoever and however. A lot of mothers who basically go a little bit out of bounds and indulge themselves in controlling their son's choice of mate. Now, just revisiting that, there's major things that I want to look at, because I'm going to do more videos on black mothers and their sons. And part of that is that we can departmentalize it into a variety of stages that affect the lack of growth, the lack of true masculinity, the lack of productivity, the lack of true social development, particularly from an intellectual and particularly from a entrepreneurial and monetary perspective, as far as black men growing and developing and building. Part of that is that when we look at the development of African American males and the development of their mother, many of these situations come about in which this child is conceived into the world, or conceived through a precursor of dysfunction from the mother and the father. And even many African American women, if women who are listening, you can even attest to this. Many of you had issues with the guy that you procreated with while you were pregnant, before you were pregnant, while you were pregnant, and they left once the child was conceived, was born. Meaning, when this child was created, you started to see this person for who they really were, outside of what you thought they were. Once you're going through the motions of carrying this child, you're experiencing a lack of support or no support and neglect, emotional neglect. Once the child is born, you're finding that there's a lack of support, there's a lack of being there, no contact or lack of contact. Arguments, yelling, screaming, even domestic violence from her part or from his part. So even in the development of this child has a mother who has went through so much emotional trauma, even physical trauma, so much dysfunction, that at the point of her trying to be nurturing and psychologically stable enough to take care of you, there's a lack of energy, there's a lack of being in her true motherly self, because she's dealing with all of the negative factors that make it difficult for her to raise you by herself instead of in the true nature of what a family is supposed to be, in which your child is being raised with the help of a male partner. Somehow in our community, we think that we can have, our women think that they can have sex with men and do it all by themselves to raise young men and women. No, you cannot. Some can, but the percentages are actually against you. And even if you are able to do it, the great job that you did by yourself could have been a better job with the presence of another man that would not allow you to have to exude so much energy just to make a decent life for your son or your daughter. See, that's what the black community is missing when we have these women saying, I don't need a man. Because what you're saying to me is that you're willing to put yourself at risk of being stressed out, uh, basically putting yourself in a position where you're not economically there. Even those who are economically there still have to spend and invest so much time in your children by yourself, as opposed to a partner being there, meaning your boyfriend, husband, whatever, even just the father being in their life. I'm not one, like, if you listen to certain sectors, they talk about you need to choose better. Well, my thing is, it is not about whether or not the woman has chose better. The person that she chose, being that he's in that situation, should do right by his child regardless of who the mother is. And that's the part that is missing. And I'm all about, and I'm going to repeat this, I am all about black male accountability, because there is no excuse, regardless of who the mother is, in the circumstances in which the child is conceived, that you should not be there for your child. I am not at this point with a community that has a 30%, less than a 30% marriage rate, over a 70, 80% female headed household, in which I'm going to say well over 70% of these women cannot afford to truly take care of their children without some level of government assistance. That level of thinking is genocidal to our people, and it is a recipe for disaster for developing upstanding, highly productive leadership in black men. It's not there. And I don't care what you feel you can do independently. For those women who say, well, I do this, I. Well, remember, as you're saying I, that child is looking at you being I struggle. Even the successful ones struggle. You're tired, you're bitter, you're angry. You think developing more masculine traits is going to help you along the way, but developing those masculine traits are unnatural, and it's difficult for you to maintain over a period of time. Look at all the single mothers, on average, who are unhappy, and they're upset, they're mad, bad mood all the time, struggling financially. But because they're barely hanging on, they're putting on this facade as if I'm good. No, you're not. You're not good. But even with that being said, it is no excuse for a black man to take care of his children, regardless of what their relationship was and regardless of what that lady did to you. Too many times in the black community, we hold the relationship or the functionality of that relationship as an excuse for why I have to, or lack of, raising a child a certain way. Whatever that relationship was prior to that child or even after, if it's over, it's over. The child is still there and he needs both parents, two parents, not one parent holding it down. Okay? So thank you. Thank you all for this discussion today. This is D. Durrell with D. Durrell Life Solutions, speaking on that dynamics and revisiting issues as it relates to the relationship between black women and their sons, because the whole descriptive situation of how this child was conceived and how a mother's, I'm going to say her whole mental status is influenced by the fact that that was dysfunction. That dysfunction carries over to the child. And with the lack of a male figure that can see things from the same gender lens as the son, it produces the environment that we see today in our community. A lack of positive, professional, educated, skilled leaders and men who are responsible and accountable for the things that they do. So have a great day. Appreciate you for coming in. Please leave comments in the comment section. Please subscribe and share.